Transparency is not automatically freedom. In finance, transparency can mean accountability, but it can also mean visibility without protection. And when every transaction becomes visible, searchable, classifiable, and programmable, transparency stops being neutral. It becomes infrastructure. The public narrative says transparency protects honest people. The structural reality is colder. A fully visible financial life creates a fully mapable citizen. Not because every institution is malicious, because every institution operates through incentives. A bank wants risk scoring, a regulator wants compliance visibility, a government wants tax efficiency, a platform wants behavioral data, a central bank wants transmission control. This is why digital payment systems are structurally different from cash. Cash settles without creating a permanent behavioral file. Digital payments create records. Each incentive sounds reasonable in isolation. Together, they create a financial environment where privacy becomes abnormal, cash becomes suspicious, and permission becomes the default layer of economic life. That is the trap, not transparency as truth, transparency as control architecture. A transparent financial system works by converting economic behavior into data. Every payment reveals more than an amount. It reveals location, timing, relationship, preference, routine, ideology, health pattern, commercial dependency, and social network. Once that data exists, institutions do not need to guess your behavior. They can model it. Governments gained more room to manage deficits, liquidity, and currency supply. Citizens absorbed the long-term cost through purchasing power erosion and monetary volatility. Ben Bernanke's Federal Reserve expanded this logic after 2008. Under his chairmanship, the Fed launched large-scale asset purchases, including agency debt and mortgage-backed securities, to stabilize credit markets. Again, the stated purpose was stability. But the mechanism mattered: balance sheet expansion, asset repricing, and liquidity injection. Those closest to financial assets benefited first. Wage earners and cash savers absorbed the second-order effects. This is the Cantillon effect in modern form. Those records can be analyzed, priced, restricted, or used for future policy design. The same structure applies to transparency. The first beneficiaries are institutions with access to the data. The cost is absorbed by individuals whose economic lives become more legible than the institutions governing them. The financial consequence is simple. When your behavior becomes transparent and institutional behavior remains complex, power does not become equal. It becomes asymmetric. This pattern is not new. Monetary systems repeatedly move from hard constraints toward managed flexibility during moments of stress. Rome diluted coinage to fund imperial pressure. The public still used the coins, but the monetary unit carried less substance. The form remained familiar. The value changed underneath. Weimar Germany expanded paper claims against a broken fiscal structure. The mechanism was not mysterious. Excessive monetary issuance met collapsing confidence, and purchasing power disintegrated. The modern version is more sophisticated. It does not require visible debasement of coins or chaotic printing presses. It uses balance sheets, policy rates, liquidity facilities, debt rollover, and digital rails. Jerome Powell's Federal Reserve made this visible in March 2020, when the FOMC directed purchases of Treasury securities and agency mortgage-backed securities in the amounts needed to support market functioning. That phrase matters. In the amounts needed means the system's stability depended on central bank elasticity. The market saw support, asset prices repriced, liquidity returned, but the structural lesson was deeper. Modern finance depends on discretionary intervention when stress exceeds system tolerance. Now connect that to financial transparency. A programmable, fully visible monetary system gives policymakers not only the ability to expand liquidity, but also the ability to target, monitor, and condition access. That does not prove abuse, it reveals capacity, and capacity changes incentives. Joe Biden's Executive Order 14,067, signed on March 9, 2022, directed federal agencies to study responsible digital asset development, including potential U.S. CBDC research. The order framed digital assets through financial stability, illicit finance, national security, human rights, inclusion, and climate concerns. Richard Nixon's 1971 suspension of dollar convertibility into gold changed the monetary base of the global system. The dollar moved away from external discipline and deeper into discretionary monetary management. Those are broad policy categories. A plausible implication is that once money becomes a policy interface, payments can be evaluated not only economically, but behaviorally. The economic parallel to today is clear. Monetary architecture is moving from value transfer toward data-rich governance. The first consequence is purchasing power exposure. When money is discretionary, the unit can be expanded. When the unit expands faster than productive capacity, purchasing power weakens. This does not always appear immediately in consumer prices. Sometimes it appears first in assets. Real estate rises, equities rise, scarce assets reprice. Cash holders feel stable numerically while becoming weaker structurally. The second consequence is liquidity dependence. Modern markets do not merely respond to earnings and productivity. They respond to liquidity conditions, real rates, balance sheet expansion, debt issuance, and refinancing pressure. When liquidity expands, risk assets breathe. When liquidity contracts, leverage becomes fragile. The third consequence is behavioral pricing. A transparent financial system allows institutions to price people not only by credit history, but by behavior patterns. Insurance, banking access, payment limits, compliance friction, and account reviews can all become more data sensitive. This is not speculation about a single law. It is the logical direction of data-rich finance. Christine Lagarde, president of the European Central Bank, described the digital euro as not just a means of payment, but also a political statement concerning the sovereignty of Europe. That statement is important because it acknowledges that money is not merely technical, it is jurisdictional power. The ECB also stated in 2024 that it was designing digital euro privacy standards and working on holding limit methodology. That decision ended Bretton Woods and expanded the role of policy judgment in currency stability. Holding limits reveal the trade-off. A CBDC may promise convenience and public money access, but it can also require calibrated constraints to protect banking stability. That means the monetary instrument is not only a payment tool, it is a designed behavioral boundary. Bitcoin enters this discussion not as rebellion, but as neutral monetary infrastructure. It is not invisible, the base chain is transparent, but its structural difference is that no central issuer can dilute supply, change monetary policy by committee, or create discretionary access based on political convenience. That does not make Bitcoin risk-free, it makes the trade-off explicit. Fiat offers elasticity with governance exposure. Bitcoin offers scarcity with volatility exposure. A rational actor does not worship either category emotionally, he studies the structure. The positioning implication is this: in a world of transparent money and discretionary policy, privacy, custody, liquidity, and scarce collateral become strategic variables. The trap is not that transparency exists. The trap is believing transparency always serves the individual. In a healthy moral order, truth matters, accountability matters, stewardship matters. A man should not need deception to live responsibly. But privacy is not deception, privacy is boundary. And without boundaries, stewardship becomes difficult because every economic decision becomes exposed to systems you do not control. The disciplined response is not paranoia, it is structural awareness. You stop asking only, is this convenient? You start asking, what dependency does this create? The consequence was not instant collapse, it was structural flexibility. You stop asking only, is this legal today? You start asking, what power does this architecture enable tomorrow? That is the difference between emotional reaction and sovereign positioning. Transparency can expose corruption, but transparency can also expose the individual to institutions with greater analytical power, greater legal reach, and greater monetary flexibility. The wise response is not to hide from reality, it is to understand the machine. Money is not just what you spend. It is the system that defines what can be saved, measured, frozen, inflated, taxed, surveilled.